Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Steve Takes a Bike Hike. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Today is Sunday, June 18th, Father's Day. I am just about to start a quite aggressive game plan for the day, and that's to do a almost 60-mile bike hike from the Black Diamond Trailhead on the D&L Rail Trail down to Northampton, Pennsylvania. I believe the total clocks out at 58.8 miles, but with a few side stops for lunch and some camera work along the way, it should be right around 60 miles. Beautiful day today. Not a cloud in the sky, and the high temperature is supposed to be around 72 degrees. Thanks for coming along, and I hope you enjoy the ride. This is actually a part of the D&L Trail that I have never been on. And this trailhead starts about 10 miles north of Whitehaven. And this is supposed to be a pretty scenic part. It goes through a lot of forest. This is actually the Pinchot State Forest that we're in. And it's about 9.5 miles or so to the time you get to Whitehaven, the Whitehaven Trailhead. There were a few other cars in the parking lot this morning. A few gentlemen walking dogs, and then a few other people unloading bikes. I saw about 4 or 5 people as I was unloading hit the trail. So this is a relatively quiet section of the trail, which is kind of what I enjoy better. And it's supposed to be pretty scenic up here as far as some lakes and some different swampy areas. There's one over there to my right, which I'll try to get a picture of on the way back. So we're just going to cruise along. And the goal today, like I said, is to get down to Northampton. Last week when I did the ride from Whitehaven to Jim Thorpe, that was about 30 miles, 28.4. I forget the exact number, but I did that in about 2.5 hours. So with a few other scheduled stops for lunch, and might stop at the bike shop in Jim Thorpe to buy myself a Father's Day present. I do need new bike gloves. They're pretty beat up. Can you see that? Anyway, I should get to Northampton sometime late in the afternoon. I'm guessing around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Not really trying to break any speed records today. Just out for what I'll call more of a training ride and a gear shakedown, if you will. For those of you who don't know, in August I will be riding the Gap Trail. That's the Great Allegheny Passage, and that's a ride that I've been looking forward to since last year. That ride's actually 148.8 miles. We can round up to 150. So 150 miles from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, going to Cumberland, Maryland. So I'm trying to get my riding weight down, and not just for the gear that I'm packing, but trying to get my weight down. We'll talk more about that later, but I'm trying to drop about another 40 pounds before I do that trip, so I'm in better shape to do the 150 miles. It's gorgeous back here today. Nice to see they have some picnic tables every so often for people to take a break and have some lunch, breakfast, just chill out for a while. Hear the birds chirping. Oh, here's somewhat of a overlook. Let's take a peek. Looks like a fire break on the trail. Yep, that's what it is. And see all the mountains off in the distance. Good morning. Morning, sir. These are actually the stock tires that the Trek Dual Sport 1 came with. And they're good, don't get me wrong. It's a good beginner's tire, if you will. But I've put a lot of miles on this bike in the last 2 years, believe it or not. And starting to wear them down a bit. And for doing a big ride, like the Gap Trail, I'm going to go ahead and do the upgrade and get some better gravel tires. Not full-fledged, not like I'm not doing any true mountain biking or anything crazy yet. But for some of the rougher terrain, and if you hit muddy or sandy patches, sometimes when they redo the trail, they'll put the gravel down, and you'll come across patches on some of the trails where, like right in here, you see this muddy rut stuff kind of, that's where it's great to have a little bit more traction when you're cruising along and you hit a little patch like that. We did have some rain last night, but the trail's relatively dry. So I'm looking at a couple different options. One is the Bontrager. These are the GR1 Bontragers that are on here now. They actually have a GR1 that's what they call a team issue, which is the upgrade to this. And then the next step would be the GR2s, again Bontrager. And then, believe it or not, and I never knew this, maybe you guys did, Pirelli actually makes bicycle tires as well. Sounds a little foofy, I know, but the Pirelli gravel tires are rated as the best gravel tires out there. So I'm going to take a look at those next time I get to the bike shop. I'm going to talk to Danny. Danny is my guy at Pocono Bike in downtown Stroudsburg. I'll tell you what, I thank him to this day every time I see him for having this bike in stock when I bought it. That was coming out of the pandemic when bikes were scarce. I mean, the bike market, you could try to order a bike, or you could order a bike, but it would literally take 6 months, almost a year, for some bikes to get delivered. And as luck would have it, fate would have it, the exact bike that I was looking for in my size, he had sitting on the showroom floor, and I bought it that day. Haven't looked back since then. Because man, once you get the bug of being on a bike trail and going on some of these longer bike rides like I've done, you're never going to turn back. So again, getting back to the gravel tires, this section here is a little bit loose gravel. So having a little bit wider, a little bit more aggressive tire helps out in those situations. So do me a favor, guys, write down in the comments below and let me know what tires you use, what kind of riding you do. I primarily have just done bike trails like this, the rails to trails. And I'd be real interested to know what tires you use and even what tires you recommend for the different scenarios. All right, I'm gonna check everything in a minute and make sure everything's tied down, secured, the saddlebag, and I'm going to just let you guys enjoy the ride for a little bit as we head on down to Whitehaven.
To keep it rolling, there's no time to be wasting. I'd just rather move it along. Got both feet but in different waters. I need space more than orders. I'd just rather move it along. I know how you're feeling, 'cause sometimes I do tight. Not tonight, you're gonna hear me. Gon' dance it off goodbye. My love, can we drop this? Our time can't pass us by. This bond makes us stronger just to be together. All I wanna do is crash now when you're spewing facts. Now I know that I am getting better. We know that we can get crazy when some things seem hazy. I know that I am getting better. I know how you're feeling, 'cause sometimes
There's some of that muddy stuff I was talking about. So we're going to be trying some different things out today. One is these Rode microphones that I have hooked up to the GoPro. And It's a wireless microphone system. I actually have a little microphone clipped onto a lanyard around my neck, and the receiver is on top of the camera. I'm trying to make sure we're level here. And the reason for that is I'm just trying to get you guys some better quality audio as well as video. Made some rookie mistakes last week with the GoPro where I had the frame rate set too low to like 24 or 30 frames per second. And for doing action video, i.e. being on a bike, in order to not have the video real blurry, you need to have those frames per second turned up a little bit. So I'm trying it out right now at 60 frames per second, and you should see a really big difference in the video quality not being so blurry, as well as the audio quality being better because of the wireless mic system that I've switched over to. So again, that's the Rode wireless go-to system that I'm using for this. What I like about the microphone is so simple. Literally clip one on the camera, plug it in, and then you have this little lapel mic that you can clip on either to your shirt, you can have it on your helmet. Comes with this really nice clip, or what I do is have it hanging in front of me, and it's got the wind protection, the dead cat as they call it, or fuzzy cat. And I'll show you pictures of all that stuff later on. All right, we're coming up on the first real scenic part of this trail, which is the lake that's over to my right-hand side. we're actually going to dismount for this part. All right, so that is Middleburg Road that we just crossed. Middleburg Road. Nice little crossing area. I'm just not familiar with that road, so I dismounted and walked across just to be on the safe side. And so we are at the Lehigh Gorge State Park, Middleburg Road. Whitehaven South Access, 1.5 miles. And that was mile marker 132. Morning, guys. Okie dokie, folks, we have made it to Whitehaven. This is the Whitehaven South Trail access. And this is where the trail gets a little sketchy because we have to do some road riding. No, I don't think for very much. I think it's just a little bit on this part of the road here. Please take your half of the middle. I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to say that the Whitehaven Family Diner is a popular place on Sunday morning. Like I said, this is a sketchy part of the ride here. I'll let these cars go by. We'll be on our way. I knew we were going to have to cross the road at one point. I do not have my bike lights on. Shame on me. I'm not even sure I have them with me. Stacy, remember, I need to have my bike lights. They might be in this. Do not blink, because you have now passed through the trail town of Whitehaven. Let's go check out the trailhead and the little area that has Pocono biking. Oh, brakes are sounding a lot better. All right, once I get through here, I'm going to tell you the story about disc brakes on a bicycle. Alright guys, this is the newly renovated trailhead. At Whitehaven. So for years this spot on the trail has been somewhat of a pain because it was pretty dilapidated, to be honest with you. And over the past year or so, they've repaved it. See if I can get a shot of the parking lot. But they widened the parking lot, they paved it, they put in some new boat launches down below on the river, and truly just made it a more enjoyable experience. It used to be tough just to try to navigate through this parking lot. Big puddle. And surprisingly, for a Sunday morning, although I guess with it being Father's Day, there are not a lot of people out and about just yet. It is only 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. But thank you to the state of Pennsylvania. Thank you to DCNR. And anybody else who had a hand in redoing this part of the trail. Bravo. This is where I started my ride from last week, when I went from Whitehaven down to Jim Thorpe. And this section last time took me roughly 2.5 hours. I did stop here and there to take some pictures and take a water break, but 2.5 hours from Whitehaven to Jim Thorpe. All right, let's do a little chat about rail trails and what they are. And let's talk about the history of this area in general. Whew. So most of the trails that I ride are what is known as rail trails, or rails to trails, as some people like to say. So basically, this used to be an old railroad track. And this line in particular, the D&L, was a Delaware and Lackawanna Railroad. And back in the day, and I'll put a blurb up for the exact year because I don't remember off the top of my head, but this train line ran from Buffalo, New York, down to Philadelphia. I believe Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. Alright guys, I am gonna stop recording for a minute as I cross this road. Or I should say stop talking for a minute as I cross this road. Morning. Coming up between you guys.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you guys. Morning, morning. Okay, back to History of Rail Trails 101. So, this particular rail line came after the canal path that ran through here, which I will stop and get some video, or I may just have to pop some pictures into the video once I get home and edit. But the canal system ran prior to the railroads, and the whole reason was because of the coal mining industry just north of here. And so the coal that was mined up north from here, so we're talking Scranton, Carbondale, Wilkes-Barre, points beyond, they needed a way to transport that coal down south to places like Bethlehem, Allentown, Philadelphia, Baltimore. So the canal system, which, God bless them, think about the hard labor to put in a canal system a few hundred years ago. Transported all the goods, the coal, the lumber, farm products, to the cities down south. And then subsequently the trains. And then when the trains became not as efficient and trucking took over, a lot of the old rail trains, rail beds became abandoned. And then conservation groups, as well as the state, DCNR, parks commissions throughout the region, were granted or purchased the old rail beds, tore up the tracks, tore up the railroad ties, put down cinder, and voila, we now have the D&L Rail Trail. Primarily used for bicycle riding. There are people that hike the trail as well, and there is a specific hiking trail on the other side of the river. And then this section of the trail that we're on right now is actually the beginning of the Lehigh Gorge State Park. And it's one of the, I was going to say hidden gems, but probably not so hidden gem anymore, of Northeast Pennsylvania. It's an absolutely stunning area. 26, 27 miles or so. Morning, everyone. Morning. Morning, guys. So as I was saying, just a really stunning, gorgeous, very pretty area of northeast Pennsylvania. And I hope and I pray that this whole section of the trail, the whole D&L Trail, is preserved forever for future generations, so that they can enjoy it too. I mean, let's talk about the recreation that goes on. I mean, as you see, I'm an old guy on a bicycle attempting to ride 60 miles today. But there are people that use the river that's just next to me for fishing, kayaking, whitewater rafting, which is incredibly popular. And when I get to one of the open spots, so I slowed down just now, one of the old railroad trestles runs across the river there, but there's just no safe way to get down to some of those spots off the trail. But when I get to one of the open spots on the river, I'm gonna take the camera off of the bicycle mount and head on down to the river just to give you a glimpse of just how beautiful it really is. And so this section, like I said, one of the big recreational things to do is to go whitewater rafting and kayaking, canoeing even. Mostly kayaking though. From Whitehaven down to Point South on the river, mostly to Rockport and to Jim Thorpe to some extent, but most of the rafting goes from Whitehaven to Rockport. And they actually have a dam release on the reservoir, the Francis Walter Dam, which is about 15 miles, I'm guessing, north of here on the river. And a few times from spring through the summer, they'll release water from that dam. This summer, this is the summer of 23, we've, until recently, had a very dry spring. So it's the Army Corps of Engineers who does the release of the dam, and they had to reschedule some of the dates, limit the number of dates where they did the dam release because the water levels were so low. We did have some rain this past week. Not a lot. Enough to get the grass green again, so I'll have to cut it one day this week, but knock on wood, or my bicycle helmet, we are not in any kind of drought situation just yet. So the next basically trail access, trailhead, will be Rockport, which is a few miles south of here. I think from Whitehaven to Rockport it's 7 miles, if I remember from last week. So the next stop will be Rockport. We'll see how busy it is there. Last week, with the rafting going on, it got a little hectic through the trailhead with the buses that pick up the rafters. I don't think it'll be that busy today, but we'll find out. All right, 5.3 miles to Rockport, so I wasn't too far off. And what should be really nice to see today is the two waterfalls that are coming up. We have Buttermilk Falls and then Luke's Falls. And with the recent rain, they should be flowing pretty nicely today. Morning. So it'll be nice to get some good video of the waterfalls and then show you the river as well. I can hear it down below. And as the leaves are out on the trees now, kind of get glimpses of it now and then. And I know I'm coming up on a section where I'll be able to walk out. I think it's on one of the old earlier I was gonna tell a little story about my brakes, and actually have a great tip for you guys that worked for me. So last week when I was riding, the trail was super dusty. We had just gone through that week or so, if you remember, of the terrible wildfires up in Canada. I mean, hundreds of millions of acres of forest land up in Canada was burned from wildfires, and a lot of that smoke found its way down here to northeast Pennsylvania. I mean, all the way into New Jersey, New York City skyline. Sort of very apocalyptic looking there for a few days. But at any rate, a lot of that smoke and dust and the lack of rain made the trail super dry last week, and what it ended up doing was fouling up my brakes. And a lot of the newer bikes have disc brakes. Good morning, good morning. Yep, the technology of bicycles has drastically improved from when I was a little kid. And most mountain bikes, trail bikes, hybrid bikes like the one I'm on, have disc brakes with an actual caliper and pads and a rotor that goes around the front wheel as well as the back wheel. And what happens is when those calipers and rotors get mucked up with either oil, dirt, grime, dust, they become squeaky as anything. So picture the sound of nails on a chalkboard whenever you try to come to a stop and tap your brakes. So after doing some research on YouTube and on the internet, there are a couple things that they suggest, and one of them is to use rubbing alcohol to wipe down the rotors. So basically you just pour some rubbing alcohol. I think it's isopropyl alcohol. Is that the right one? Morning. And you dab some of that onto a towel, a rag. I wouldn't suggest using paper towel because all the dust and the particles will get into your calipers. But you just dab that on a rag and do a really, really good job of wiping down the brakes. And in this case, I did the rotors on both the front and the back. And not only did it stop the squeaking, but what happens is when your brakes get dirty like that, the actual stopping power or braking power is degraded, so you don't stop as quickly. So now when I tap on my brakes, and I'm going to do it once I get around this curve here, make sure no one's coming. Right now, I'm actually tapping on my brakes. You know, you think people would move over a little bit when they see another bike coming? The guy's got his radio blasting on his bike. Trail etiquette. That's what we'll talk about next. So at any rate, try that out if you're having a problem with squeaky brakes. If you've got disc brakes, rub the rotors down with rubbing alcohol. And don't tell Stacy I told you this, but the other alternative is to use nail polish remover. Yes, nail polish remover. And now that I've said that, she's gonna hide that from me, but that's okay. I have some rubbing alcohol, and I'm actually going to, when I do my big trip in August, take a tiny bottle of that and put that into my bicycle repair kit, just in case I need it along the ride. All right, guys, we are coming up on Rockport, and I will check in with you then. All right, guys, We are at the Rockport access area. And I can tell you right now, it's definitely a lot less busy than it was last weekend. Morning, morning. Last week when I came through here, there was about 4 or 5 buses coming through the area. I'm gonna park right here. And so the road that you come down, you'll see a car coming just past that blue truck. There's a road that leads down here. And then these stairs lead down to the access spot on the river. I'm going to take a walk down there and show you what the river looks like for once. Did that guy just throw a cigarette butt on the goddamn ground? Are you for real? People. I love people. Alright, let me take the camera off of here real quick. And show you the river. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So let's just be real careful because I'm trying to film and walk down stairs at the same time. Never a good combination. The water is still relatively low. But how beautiful is that? I just passed a sign that said Glenanoco, 8.9 miles. So I'm going to guess I'm about 25 miles into this ride with about another 30 to go. Feeling good? Took a little break at the waterfall and drank some Gatorade, had a granola bar, fueled up for the next leg of this trip. And this stretch of the trail through Glenanoco, and don't get me wrong, not that the entire trail is not gorgeous, but I guess it's my favorite part of the trail. The scenery is absolutely amazing, and as you're going through that stretch, you definitely get a feel for how far down in the Lehigh Gorge you actually are, with the river probably 75 yards down on the left-hand side. And you see some of the mountains towering over on each side of the river and each side of the trail. It just gives you a sense of perspective of, like I said, how low you are in this gorge that was carved by the river and throughout the Ice Age tens of thousands of years ago. And when I get down to that stretch, I'll try to get some video to do it justice so you can see what I'm talking about. So again, about 8 miles now to Glenanoco, and then Jim Thorpe after that. Afternoon, sir. So let's talk about trail etiquette. And this is one of those things that's always a hot topic. Always people have different feelings about it, but the bottom line is, when you're on the trail, here's my words of wisdom for trail etiquette. There are signs that say to ride single file. There are signs that say, pass on the left. Give fair warning, shout out on your left, ring your bell, whatever it is. They can all be summed up in like one or two things. Be polite. Wave, say hello, say good morning. It's not going to kill you to smile at someone. And give a wave. Hey, how you doing? And then the other thing is, and maybe this is because I've had people help me, and it's just the right thing to do. If you see someone that is on the side of the trail, just slow down a bit and say, hey, you guys okay? Need anything? Do you have water? Try to help your fellow riders, your fellow human beings. Be nice to people. I don't think that's such a stretch. We live in a day and age where everyone's in a rush. Everyone's go, go, go. And just slow down a little bit, please. Help each other. I was on a trail ride 2 months ago now, back in April. I was doing the Pine Creek Rail Trail. And this is going to be a shout out to a new friend of mine that I met along the way. A gentleman by the name of Joe. And on my third day of that trip, which I ended up doing 120 miles, first trip of the year, and I was trying to just do 60 miles for my birthday, which I eventually did. I unfortunately had to break it up into 2 days, but that was for another reason. There was actually a brush fire along the trail. But anyway, on the last leg of that trip, the last 15 miles, I had misjudged it, how long it was going to take, how hot it was that day. And I found myself 15 miles from my final destination with no water. No water, no Gatorade, and stupid me, no water filter. Had this big, beautiful Pine Creek flowing right next to me, but I didn't have my water filter. And a gentleman by the name of Joe Powell came up and said hello, asked how I was, asked where I was headed, and I told him that I was headed back up to the North Trailhead and had about 15 miles to go. The nicest gentleman in the world, and I'll never forget it. He offered me a bottle of Gatorade. That made my day. It made my trip. I'll never forget that. And then he actually said that afternoon. Hey guys. He said that he was headed about 2 miles further south on the trail, and that when he turned around, and he's a very experienced bike rider, he asked me if I wouldn't mind if he rode along with me. And I said, of course not. And being in turtle mode at that point, my legs were like spaghetti. I was cooked. And I was literally having to stop every 2 miles. And he eventually caught up to me, no surprise. And he did that last 12 miles of the trail with me. And each time I needed to stop, he stopped with me. And we talked and we chatted. And just to have that moral support and that encouragement was absolutely amazing. So thank you, Joe. And thank you to any trail angel out there who does that type of thing. Afternoon. So, enough preaching. I'm just asking everyone to help each other out on the trail. Afternoon. And be friendly. Say hello. Nod your head. Wave. So that's trail etiquette. Afternoon. And then the other part of this is something that I learned back from when I started hiking and backpacking. And that's the concept of leave no trace. You might have heard me earlier mutter, did that guy just really throw a cigarette butt down on the ground? And I know I'm not the trail police, and I probably am going to get myself in trouble one of these days when I confront someone when I see them throwing trash on the ground. But if you're out here to enjoy nature, then please don't throw your trash on the ground. Don't leave your water bottles on a picnic table. Candy wrappers, cigarette butts. Oh my God. I don't smoke. I used to years ago. But God, it's such a bad habit to begin with. And then you make it worse by just throwing cigarette butts on a bike trail. What are you thinking? Afternoon. See, and there's a friendly gentleman. Probably the first time he's ever been on a bike on a trail like this. But he waved. He said hello. Anyway, don't litter on the trails. Bring a small trash bag with you. Set it inside your bike bag or your backpack. And just have a little bag to use to put all your trash in, and take it a step farther. Further. If you see somebody else that's left trash or throw something, stop and pick it up. Help police the trail. It's not going to hurt you to stop for a second, pick up a water bottle or a napkin, candy wrapper, whatever, and help to keep the trail clean. All right, mile marker 115, guys. 115. Cruising along. on the D&L Rail Trail, Sunday, June 18th, Father's Day. That's so cool. It's actually a elderly woman sitting on the rock ledge, looking out at the creek. Listen to me, I think I'm in Pine Creek still. Looking out at the river, having her lunch, not a care in the world. Good for her. Alright, so I'm going to tilt the camera up. Hope I don't mess up the shot, but take a look at how high the mountains are here. And then the river down to the left. I'm going to stop up here because this is probably a great area to give you some perspective of the river and of the mountains surrounding it. Let me pull off over here. See if I can get you some perspective of the mountain. Definitely starting to warm up. Whew. So I don't know if any of that previous part was on camera. But, and I don't know if you can make this out, we have a rattlesnake who is sunning himself right there on the trestle. Actually, two of them. Wow, okay. Two rattlesnakes sunning themselves. So I'm gonna hang out here for a few minutes and just warn anyone that might be riding by that they are there. God, that spooked the heck out of me. I hope I have that on camera. That'll be a true moment where you can see what a wuss I can be when I get spooked by a snake. Oh, now we got a third snake. This must be Rattlesnake Corner. I'm gonna rename it. And this guy's climbing over the trestle. Holy bejesus. Cool to see, but kind of scary at the same time. Folks, we have made it to Jim Thorpe.